And now it's recording. What are you doing now? Okay, there's a box down on the left. Looks like it holds like 4 batteries. It's attached to the cord. Oh, you can't hear me?
Yeah.
Grab that box down there, and at the one end of it, there'll be a power button. And turn it over, turn it over, turn it over. Hold that down, and you'll hear it come on. There it goes. Makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, now move that a little closer so I can still hear you, because I can shitty headset. Oh, I'm gonna have to cut that out. The camera hears everything. Okay, so we're at 85 on the oil. It needs to be at 120 before we can go above that little green arc there. Reason for that is it's a very modern engine. It makes a lot of horsepower, 100 horsepower out of a tiny little engine. So one of the ways it does that is high compression. And it's a very, very tightly fit. It's almost a Swiss watch. They're built in Austria, actually. So there's a lot of dissimilar metals in there. So right now where it's cold, some of the metals are expanding faster than others. So if you threw a whole lot of RPM on top of that, very bad for the engine long term. Wouldn't blow up, but you would pay for it later. So what they use as a measure of everything being all pretty much expanded and all ready to go is the oil temperature. It's the only real reliable measure they have. So they figure at 120 degrees, that thing's ready to go. And what'll happen is this thing is also very smart. It knows we have that type of engine, so it has that very limited green band right there. You don't want to rev up too much when that engine's still heating up because of the problem mentioned before. So what's going to happen is when this hits 120, that green arc will then go all the way up the red line, and we'll be basically ready to go. So while we're sitting here waiting, there's things we can be doing. We'll go down over KPMH, which is Portsmouth, and we're going to want to fly over that and make sure that they've plowed the runway. And if they have,
And this will let us know.
well, we'll see it. We have eyes for that. But this will get us there. And then whether or not it is or isn't, we'll go down to the river because it should be pretty scenic today, and I'll get some, I like river pictures. But this will take us directly there, so we can just say direct to. Now it expects, based on past performance, that it's going to take 32 minutes to get there. That's just a wild guess. It's going to depend on the wind and everything once we get in the air, but that's a good indication. About half hour seems about right. So we're up to 95. We could probably taxi by pretty soon because it's going to heat up on our way down to the taxiway. I like to see that this is charging because this battery sat for a while, and I would expect it to be a little bit depleted just from the cold. And I'm at idle, and I'm still getting 2 amps. One of the things that happens with these airplanes right around this amount of time is the voltage regulator goes bad. And the way you can tell is it gets more and more reluctant to charge at idle. You know, you need a higher RPM, so that's a nice healthy indication. This green light matches that red. That would have been the red light. This would have been red also. Would have kept me from starting the engine because the wing pins weren't safe. What happens is when they get cold, they contract a little bit away from the sensor, so I just have to jiggle a little bit to wake it up. These probably won't get warm until we're just about ready to go. That's cylinder head temps, and of course you got a lot of cold air blowing across them right now. Well, the cylinder heads are water cooled, so the radiator is probably not going to get super hot. We probably won't get a whole lot of heat. So yeah, see, it's just climbing right up. So everything's good. We got tons of gas. 15 plus is all it can sense. It's actually at 20. I filled it all the way up. So we got our course in. We're about ready to go. I don't know how much you remember talking about. You never did talk to a tower, did you? Yeah. Okay, you don't have to do it, but just for your edification. Generally, the way the process goes is who I think I'm calling, so that if I'm not calling the right person, they can correct me, so I don't get a clearance for somebody that's just randomly driving around on a CB radio. So it's who you're calling, who you are, where you are, what you want. So Bolton Ground, experimental 284 Delta Golf. I have to tell them at least once that's experimental. We're at the T-hangars. We're ready to taxi, which implies that we want to go to the runway. Now what he's going to do is he'll reply back, experimental 284 Delta Golf, taxi to runway 22 via taxiway Bravo to Alpha. I'm assuming by the wind. That will take off on 22, which is nice. It'll point us just the direction we're headed anyway. You can kind of see we'll end up going right down where we want to go.
Yeah.
So that'll work out well for all involved. That's because I haven't updated the maps and ADS-B hasn't come on yet. Sometimes I just pull this out. Where's the ADS-B? Yeah. Sometimes it just wants reset. Sometimes it's because we're sitting on the ground, and sometimes it'll pick up the signal, and sometimes it won't. And we don't really need it. It's handy. Yeah, there it goes. It's working now. It's handy to have. It'll give us weather information and things like that. It's really handy to get the traffic information, so that's the one reason we would definitely want that turned on.
This is an update.
But now-
Is the USB?
Oh yeah, there's a USB port underneath here. I put a hub in it. So this little Wi-Fi dongle works with a program called 4Flight. I have it on the phone and I have it on my iPad. And that lets you do really good flight planning. So you can put in a very sophisticated route and you just push a button and it uploads this to this. So you don't have to re-type it all in.
Okay.
So it's really handy for that. And also, it sends a signal. I could use this to mimic some of the turn and bank and the altitude. I could use this as a second instrument panel, just based on the output coming from this thing. These are maps. These are approach plates. So there's about 3 gig worth of, or more. There's a whole lot of data on that. So like, for example, at Bolton, I could go into map, and I could go into info, and I could say, oops, my charts aren't working. Okay. Sometimes it needs a reboot too. So let's go back and see if I can get that to pick it up. Info. Nope, I can do charts. Oh, that's because of my KPMH. Oh, there it is. There's the charts. So if we wanted to see what it looks like down there, here's the airport diagram. So with the wind being, well, it's pretty much, I think, going to be out of the southwest. We're probably going to land the other way around, towards the south. I feel that wind blowing on there. It makes the propeller feel funny. Blowing the tail around quite a bit too. Okay, so we're about ready to go. We'll taxi on down. So now we have, see how we have that full green arc now, so we're ready to go.
We're at Alpha 2.
Yep. And he doesn't care which one we go to, but if we went to Alpha 2, and we'd tell him we want an intersection departure Alpha 2, he would ask why, because it's only 50 feet apart. But if there's somebody up here taking a long time to get to the runway, you might do it. And then he would tell you how much runway remains. You know, if you're at Alpha 3 or Alpha 4, where you're halfway down the runway, you want to know how much more runway there is since you're not using the full thing. So it's pilot's discretion. If you want to do that, you can. And here we'll do our run up. I'll need you to do these. Now we're going to do those one at a time. I'm going to run up to 4,000 RPM, and I'll have you turn off ignition A, watch for the RPM drop. It'll be about 100. Then you'll turn A back on, and then I'll say B, and you'll turn that off, and it should be about the same drop, and then we'll turn that back on. So we're going to run her up to 4,000. Okay, let's turn off A. That's good, turn it on. And turn off B. That's good, turn it on. Okay, we should still idle. See how that went away? It's still 13.7, so it had to be right on the very, very fringe of that. That's about as low as we want to idle set. That back up. Okay. Go over to tower frequency, where you can tell, another verification. It knows that 128.1 at this location is KTZR tower, and 128 is KTZR ground. Take that somewhere else. I mean, they reuse the frequencies, obviously. It's a very big country, and there's not a lot of frequencies. So when you get out somewhere and you're looking at a Unicom where there may be 3 within distance that are using the same one, it won't even tell you. It just gives you the number. But it's a nice little cross-check so you don't talk to the wrong guy. The ground controller and the tower controller, Bolton Field's the exact same guy. It's not a big enough tower to need 2 guys. But you keep the habits. You don't want to just get lazy. He would correct you. If I called for clearance or takeoff clearance on 128, he would correct me. He'd have me go over the tower because it's all just process and policy and stuff, and it's all for a good reason. So we're ready to go. Looking at the wind sockets right down the runway, it looks like. So this should be a short but fairly straight takeoff. This one, the Vans airplanes, I won't call the nose wheel weak, but it's not overly robust, and you take care with it. It swivels, because it doesn't have that tie into the rudder pedals, so it'll get a little shimmy and shake sometimes. So what we do is, I don't know if you're as far as soft field takeoff. I think you only had a couple lessons to probably do that. The idea with a soft field takeoff, first of all, you keep rolling, you don't stop. The theory being that the wheels would sink in, so you keep going. We don't have to worry about that. But the other is you get that stick all the way back, because you want that nose wheel up out of that muck as soon as you can get it. And we would also probably use a little bit of flaps, but we don't need to do that either. So what we take away from that with this airplane is we just start out our roll with the nose, the stick all the way back. Nose is going to come up. It'll come up very quickly, 3 or 4 seconds, and then I'm going to ease off that stick because we don't want it to keep coming up. I'm just going to hold kind of a slight angle, just enough to keep it off the ground, and at some point the plane will just fly off by itself, and just very easily, and I think it'll probably be before we get down to Alpha 3. So this is the same guy. He knows what we want to do, but we're going to pretend like we never talked to him before, so it's going to be Bolton Tower Experiment 284 Delta Golf, ready for takeoff, runway 22, departing VFR southbound. In case he forgot. And we'll creep up here so we're ready to go. Get that nose wheel. See how hard it is to get that nose wheel straightened back out once you leave it turned like that?
Yeah.
Fulton Tower, experimental 284 Delta Golf, ready for takeoff, runway 22, departing VFR southbound.
Bravo 4 Delta Golf, Fulton Tower, runway 22, clear for takeoff, southbound departure approved.
Clear for takeoff, runway 22 with a southbound departure 4 Delta Golf.
Steer with the brakes just a little bit, but with the stick back, see, I can feel the elevator. So now that means there's enough air for the rudder. So I get my feet off of the brakes and steer with the rudder. And there, so we're in the air already.
That was very quick.
Yeah. The wind helps with that. But it's a real climber. It really likes to climb. My theory on that is they had a 100 horsepower engine in there for a 750 pound airplane. And because it's an LSA, by law, it's restricted to a cruising speed of no more than 120 knots. And there's plenty of engine out there that would take it faster. So the energy had to go somewhere, so they put it into a high lift wing. So I could carry a lot of weight and it get off the ground real quick. And it's the reason they chose that engine is because it's a nice small size. They didn't really need 100 horsepower, but it was there for the taking, so why not? So we can turn on course anytime we want. So I'm just going to turn. I'm going to line that purple line straight up and down. Now that will not correct for wind. So that would drift off after a while. You can see it starting to drift off. See that segment coming out of the middle?
Yes.
That means we're right of course and we need to overshoot by a little bit to the left. Now this one, this purple line right here, this does show your wind correction. So we can get lined up with that. Actually, I'm not even close to it. Get over here a little bit more. We'll get lined up with that. And then all we have to do is line up and follow that purple line. Here, you can start flying. So very gently, there you go. Left hand, so you have a right hand for the throttle. And I'll hold the rudder for you for now. Now let's get back to the right. Keep looking out the window. Don't stare too much at that because we want to stay more or less level. And we want to climb a little bit, so don't let the nose come down. Right about there, that's good, right there. And we'll just take it up to about 3,500 feet. Now keep an eye on your airspeed. We're doing great. This thing really wants to climb when the air is this cold. It's real thick air. I mean, it just wants to climb. So we're doing 1,100 foot per minute at 87, 86, 85 knots. That's a very good climb rate relative to, say, something like a Cessna. Ears are popping already. Now you can see how much wind correction there is. See that wind from the, it's coming from the right. You're fine, you're right where you are. Okay. It's coming from the right. Our crosswind component is 22 knots. So you're actually, it's like current. You're having to kind of angle into it. So you're angled in, it tells you how much to angle. It's about 10 degrees. So if you follow this one, you can kind of figure out how strong the wind is just by looking at that one.
Oh, I understand that, yes.
Pretty neat, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually
You used to have the E6B where you had to deal that thing around and try to figure out your angle, and you know, you're drawing a little pencil on there, and I mean, it was just not accurate. It was close enough, but this thing, right there, makes it so much easier. Gorgeous day.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, cold on my side. Getting some air from right here. It's nice in the summer, which is why I don't fix it. What is it at? 24 degrees out there.
24.
It uses that. It needs that to calculate your density altitude, which I don't know if you took to ground school if you remember density altitude, but it calculates it for you, which is kind of nice. That could be a lifesaver someplace out like in Reno, up in the hills. A lot of people start that takeoff and they don't realize that they just don't have enough power to get out of that ground effect, and they just go to the end of the runway and fly into the trees. But if you saw, yeah, your density altitude is 10,000 feet, you probably wouldn't try that. So we're coming up on 3,500. So to level off, you'll have to pull the throttle back. It's tight because it has these big springs on it once it pull it in. So you do kind of a loosen up. You loosen this up like so with one part of your hand, and just pull this back with the other. There we go. And we'll leave it right around there and see what that does. And now let's do this. Let's turn on altitude hold and nav hold and autopilot. Autopilot has the airplane. Now it's going to lower us down Let's see if it picks up that 3,500 feet. Yeah, it's telling me it wants 3,500 feet, and that's going to follow the GPS. And it should just do that by itself. Now, you used to have to do this yourself. You have to chase the trim up and down.
Yeah.
When I installed these, this one here came with an automatic trim device. So see how that went away? It did it for us. So it's truly become an autopilot now. I don't have to constantly be chasing the trim up and down. So we have a little bit of a headwind component. Take a little bit longer than it will to get down there than it will to get back. Yeah, see how a little bit it has on the head?
Yeah.
Another way to tell is your true airspeed is 111 knots, but we're only doing 103 across the ground. So you're losing 8 knots to just that little bit of a headwind. If we were going right into it, you'd be losing 32 knots, so we're not complaining. Yep, that's all there is to it. So it's got it all nice and trimmed out for you, so if you want to go back to hand flying it, you certainly can. And the way you turn off the autopilot is just that red button right there, so that's up to you. If you want to fly it, go ahead and fly it.
Well, I want to soak this up for just a second.
Okay.
I actually want to take some pictures.
Yeah, then go ahead, you're fine. I'll watch for it.
This is great.
I mean, it's an autopilot, but you do keep an eye on it. It's not blind faith. It has betrayed me before.
So there's about 5 degrees, 10 degrees.
Yeah, you can see it right. You can see it right there. So we're heading. Oh, that's not right. Oh, that's my heading bug. Our course is 175. That's what we want to do across the ground. Our heading is 188. So that's another way you can tell how wide that spread is. So about 13, 14 degrees. It's pretty big.
So this is compensating constantly.
Yes,
to keep it
it's
at
constantly.
3,500 feet.
Yeah, and same with the altitude. The autopilot is constantly. You can feel it. See how you feel those little tiny motions it's making? There, it gave you a little bit of nose down there. So you can feel it. Now some of that clickiness that you feel.
Yeah.
I think that's the brushes. It's DC motors that run this thing, I think, and they have brushes. And there's a little notch on the commutator where it kind of jerks across those brushes. You can get brushless engines, but they're a lot more expensive.
Well, they've got to be pretty durable, right?
And they're pretty strong.
Yeah.
Now, by law, you need to be able to override them. It can't be so strong that you can't override it. So let's say you don't trust the autopilot, or you need to do something very quickly. You need to turn left. Move the stick to the left. Go ahead. See? Very easy to overpower it, and it'll just recover back. And that's by law, because you get something so strong that you can't overpower it, and it decides to go crazy. You got a problem. Now, it's an amazingly cheap autopilot, because all of the logic now, instead of being built into electronics, it's all built into software. So it comes with this box. When you buy this, you get the autopilot logic. The only thing you don't get are the servos. And that's 2 big electric motors. One you're sitting on the pitch servo, and the roll servo's back there, and they're $750 each. So $1,500, you have an autopilot that in a certified plane would cost $15,000 to $20,000. Why not? I'll have it, thank you. I didn't think I'd use it very much, but I actually do. Particularly when I'm flying alone and I want to be able to look around and take pictures. I can trust the autopilot to keep the plane going, which is nice. Now, these were additional. Usually, without these, you have to do everything through these soft buttons, so you're kind of digging around in menus. And now you still do some of that, but these are the most common things you use. So if I want to change the barometric setting, I don't have to fiddle around with that and put it on there. I can just do it directly. Or if I want to change our altitude, let's say I want to go up to 4,000 feet, I'll go ahead and dial it in. It's changing right there. Now that told it I want to go to 4,000 feet, but I didn't tell it when. So it's going to continue to do 3,500 feet until I say, all right, let's go on up. And now it's going to start a gradual climb.
That's nice.
And then I'm going to change it back down to 4,000 or 3,500 because I really don't want to go up there. And so I don't want to go back down. And the same with the heading and all that stuff. So I could do a track mode. See that little blue thing right there? Watch, see how that comes around? Let's say I'm flying along on this thing. This happens now and then. I'm flying direct to Portsmouth and somebody is coming direct Portsmouth to Bolton. And we're right within a few yards of each other because it's GPS. And we're probably very close to the same altitude. A lot of people fly at 3,500. So what I can do is, I see them coming. They'll be out there, look just like that. Except it'll say +00, which means he's my altitude, and his arrow's pointed right at me. I can center it on the track. This will center to exactly where we're headed. And then I say I want to go to track mode. And now I can dial myself over like this. Actually, I set it up on wind, not ground. And move myself off a little bit. We only need to go a half mile or so. If we're both GPS, a half mile is as good as, right? So I would ease myself over a little bit. and then just go ahead and turn that track back parallel with that ground track, and then let the autopilot fly track for a while. Then when I'm done, I can just go back to following the GPS. So it's handy for that.
Yes.
It's handy if you're not using the GPS at all. If you're just using, say, level or something, you can. That's why it's called heading or track. By track, it means it's going to follow the course, my actual ground track. If I put it on heading, see what it's going to do is it can go all the way over there. But it won't do that until I turn. I can tell it I don't want to be on track, and it'll default to that. But we're just going to go back to nav, and now it's going to correct back over and get on course. So that guy has already passed us in my little scenario.
Yeah, I was looking for other aircraft.
Yeah, there was one. He's under one of these little. Oh, here, we can find him a little bit by just zooming out. There's a guy. He's 900 feet above us. Angle. He's very far away. That's 12 miles right there. So he's about 14 miles away. You never see him. He may be heading directly to Portsmouth or not. He's kind of cutting across us, so that wouldn't work. It's hard to tell where he's headed. Could be going to Pike here.
So he's 9 above us.
Yeah, 900 feet above us. Yeah,
above us, and he's way over there.
Yeah, we won't even see him.
Yeah.
There was another one behind us. He's also pretty far away. I usually keep it at about 8. That's a nice little mix, or kind of compromise. Seeing far enough out, but close enough that you get a lot more detail. This won't work with Portsmouth because it's a straight in. Let's assume this is just our actual track. So one of the things I've always struggled with, I know I struggled with it as a student, and I know people I fly with struggle with it while they're students, is the FAA will tell you should be making left turns in the traffic pattern. What they don't tell you is how to get into the traffic pattern. The only thing they tell you is it should be on a 45-degree angle to a left downwind. It's all well and good if you're starting right here, but what if you're down here? How do you get over there? So I made this little card. If you were to look ahead, and so there's only 2 ways you can come at the runway, right? I mean, there's a zillion ways you can come at it, but there's only 2 presentations. It'll either be angled like this, and I'm not counting this or this because we don't care. It'll be angled like this, or it'll be angled like this, right?
Okay.
So let's assume it's angled like this, and we want to make a left pattern. That means we need to get to the other side of the runway to make those left turns if we're coming back to the north. If we're not, it means we need to turn around and come back. But that's hard to visualize, right? Yeah. So what I'll do, angled like this, like I said, it's angled like this. We're going to come right here. Instead of coming right over the middle of the runway, we'll come right here. And because we're pretty sure we're going to want to land to the south, the wind was out of the southwest, that means I need to follow this path. So this is about 3 miles away from the airport where there shouldn't be a whole lot of traffic. No matter what they're doing, nobody should be about 3 miles away getting ready to land unless they're in a jet. And I don't think even they would do that. So we would use this. I could go to the airport, I could scan ahead, and I could move a waypoint right off about 3 miles to the side, and I could make that my next waypoint for the GPS to fly me to. Then when I get here, all I have to do is start my descent down to pattern altitude, make this big turn, come back, and here's that 45 degree that they want to the left downwind. That's what they want. Now, if the wind was coming the other way, we would just go ahead and turn and come across. We're 500 feet above or more above the traffic pattern. There shouldn't be anybody there. And we would come across, and we'd go far enough out that we could turn and then make that 45 degree in. Now, if the runway was the other way, we'd just flip it over. And it's a little bit different.
Tower says November 12865.
If we wanted to land on 18 and we were on this side, we would cross over and do like this. Otherwise, we would just go straight into it. And it doesn't matter which runway, because there's only 2 ways you can see the runway. So I invented this thing, worked on this for a while. No idea what to do with it. It seems useful to me for maybe an instruction aid. After a while, you kind of figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
But I'm flying with a guy that is brand new. Well, you're brand new, really, if you get down to it. And if I were to say to you, I want you to plan our arrival, we're 42 miles out, what do you need to know to do that? Well, you need to know the wind, and we can probably get that. I think they have reporting down there, so let's go to map, info, weather. No, they don't report the weather, so we would have to find something nearby that does. There's other airports that would. And then we would want to see the way the runway's oriented and how we're oriented to it. So another way to do that, we can zoom way out. And it's there, it is right there. We can kind of zoom in. And at some point it'll show that runway. There it is. So it's just like this. So if we were landing 18, which we're not, we would just go straight into the left downwind for, 36. We'd go straight into the downwind. We're going to land on 18. So we're going to cut across till we're out of everybody's way, and then come back. Now, realistically, you can be monitoring that frequency, and if you don't hear anybody else there, I don't know that you go through all this or not. This is FAA compliant. They call it an advisory circular, so they advise that you do it their way. A lot of people say, yeah, the insurance company is going to have a different opinion if something happens. So I probably wouldn't bother with all of this. I might cut it short a little bit. I might actually come down here a little bit and cut across up here and enter into a downwind. So you're still making your left turns and your left downwind and everything. But the FAA is pretty clear that they really want you doing this and don't want you making a direct entry to the downwind. But if you're the only guy there, it's kind of your discretion. If it's busy,
Only that to you.
you hear oh yeah, thank you. You hear a couple, 3, 4 airplanes down there, then you're very, very interested in doing this because you kind of want to mesh in and don't want to cause a problem, and you want to kind of you want to make sure you're not going head to head. What gets weird is like a really calm day, or a direct crosswind where you can choose either one. So if you got a guy that's doing this, and you've decided you're going to come up on a crosswind and come back over, well then you're going right at them. This kind of avoids all that, and that's fairly rare. Somebody would have to be screwing around. But I don't know that it's all that uncommon for somebody that wants to do this to come up this way and then cut across. Well, you may have somebody coming down this way. Well, actually this way, because everybody should be turning left.
Yeah, but technically the tower should be telling you.
Well, there is no tower.
Well, if there is no tower.
Oh, if there's a tower, he's going to tell you exactly what to do.
He's going to tell you exactly what to do.
This is for an uncontrolled airport where there is no tower. We got traffic out there. 3 miles, 1,100 feet. So that's one you can look for. Oh, he's turning. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, because a lot of them we were talking about before might not have a GPS system.
Oh, right, yeah.
But you just almost got to pay attention to what they're doing as well.
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
They're into it.
And actually, what you do is you monitor the frequency as you get closer, and we can start doing that now. We won't hear it because they're pretty far away, but they're on 122.8. So I can go to frequency. I want to go to Unicom, Tutanacom. It's right there. Make it active. So there we can start listening for anybody down there.
So this is 5 miles.
Yep.
And he's probably no more than 3 miles away.
That's about right. 1,100 feet below us. He'll be a little hard to see. He's going to be off to the side. Keep that in mind. This is your ground track, not where your eyes are pointing. And he's going to be a little bit down in that haze. And they paint airplanes white so that they disappear against the haze and the snow. You can see the snow's a little thicker down here.
Southbound traffic, Diamond 193 Delta.
And we are not really catching up with him, so he shouldn't be much of a
I will
problem.
be flying directly over the field, enter left downwind for runway 25. Southbound traffic.
So that's what he's doing. He's doing this. What did I do with my little chart? That guy at the Bell Fountain is going to come. He's going to want to left traffic. He's coming directly across, but then he's going to turn directly into the downwind. He's not going to do this big thing here, and he's probably the only guy there. And I don't judge.
Now, how high have you took her up?
10,000. That's my limit. As an LSA pilot, I can't go above 10,000 feet. And it's part of the acceptance test you do after you finish the airplane. You run some tests and you have to climb it up to 10,000 feet and make sure to go there. It takes a while to get there.
Thanks, my brother, 358 Lima, 2,000 feet about...
The only time I can go above 10,000 feet indicated is if the ground below me requires me to. And then I can't remember if I have to go 1,000 feet above. I can only go 1,000 feet above or something like that. But there's not any 10,000 foot mountains around here, so it's not really a factor for me. You got to go pretty. You got to go pretty far. Well, those are no more than 1,000 or 2. Well, we're already at 1,000, right? I mean, we started at 900. Those aren't very big. 1,500 maybe. They're not much. Got to get out to the Rockies. I'm not sure the Smokies even get above 10,000. I'd have to look that up. They're probably pretty close, 8,000 or 9,000. I'd have to look it up.
Just a slight adjustment, and it just...
Oh yes, yeah, it's very nimble. Pilot's plane. It's sport plane. So the cost of that, you don't have a lot of stability if you're flying instruments or something like that. You really have to pay attention to it because it's not very unstable, but it's not as stable as you may be used to from a Cessna or something like that. They're built for travel where you don't want to have to pay. This is more like a helicopter where you really have to pay attention to it. That's why I end up using the autopilot more than I thought I would.
I got you inside.
Because you really can't stop it. You can't look aside to do anything.
Great. What is your favorite route?
Well, the one I fly most commonly is out to Dark County. That's how to visit my parents.
Dark County?
Yeah, Greenville area.
Greenville.
Yeah.
That's where my girlfriend's at. That's where I go every 2 weeks. Annie Oakley.
Yeah? Is that her name? Because that would be very funny. She'd be very well known there.
Portsmouth traffic, airback 97, helicopter off scene flight 5 miles to the
We have a
south of Portsmouth, turning northbound.
okay airport. There's a helicopter departing Portsmouth and heading northbound. That should interest us because we're north of Portsmouth. But we're also 11 and a half miles out, and a helicopter probably isn't going to come up to 3,500 feet. And they'll show up on here at some point anyway. Now, let's see, we never did figure out their wind, did we? So I don't know what's nearby. Let's find something nearby that maybe has give us a weather report. Well, we can go all the way down to, what is that, Huntington?
8324 Echo.
Okay, we can go to Huntington and find some weather. Map. Oh. Still doesn't have, so we're going to go to KHTS. Watch here.
And that's what I wanted to do. I took it up a little high just so I could feel what it feels like to go down.
Yes, and let's hear their weather. 180 at, okay, due out of the south, which we expected. So we'll land on 18 at Portsmouth. And that means we should do my little crossover card, and maybe we'll just do that for practice.
Yeah, we're coming upon it.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I zoomed in.
We're probably no more than about...
I zoomed in. We're 9 miles out.
10 miles out.
Yep. So we will start a descent soon. You can see it. It's right out there in front of you. So that looks like this. See how it's angled? So we want this card. So we're going to cross over and kind of do this whole procedure, almost a procedure turn, and come back for the left traffic to runway 18 as required by the FAA. So we want 500 feet above traffic pattern altitude. Traffic pattern altitude you can find on here. It's 1,900 feet. So we want 2,400 feet. So let's go ahead and turn on the autopilot. And let's tell we want our altitude to be 2,400 feet.
Where was the autopilot? Right?
It'll be up there.
Okay.
So 2,400 feet. Yeah, you're still flying.
Oh, great.
Okay. Autopilot. Let's see. I want altitude and autopilot and go down. And it's going to follow the nav course if I turn that on.
Correct.
There we go.
Hey, I wasn't too far off the map.
No, you weren't. Not at all. All right, so that should take us down to 2,400 feet. Now, what it won't do is it'll do nothing about the throttle. And the airplane does have a red line. See how now that we're going down, it's starting to speed up, so we don't want that.
It's gonna go up,
so we'll go ahead and pull the throttle back on our own because the autopilot doesn't know how to do that. You're up in an Airbus or a very expensive Boeing by the time you get auto throttles. Yeah, maybe a fancy enough Learjet. Who knows?
There
See it?
Yep.
Yeah. So, kind of sticks out with the black against the snow. Makes it easier. That helicopter seems somebody said they were turning south. We don't pay attention to that.
Approaching altitude.
Alright. Okay, so we're aiming at 2,400 feet, and we want to be there. I'm going to use track mode now. I no longer want to go directly to the airport because we want to stay that 3-mile distance away from it. So I'm going to go to track mode. I want to line it up so it doesn't do an immediate turn once I turn it on. There we go, track. And we're going to angle off a little bit, see? We're going to angle off from the runway a little bit.
That's because of the wind.
Well, it's so I don't want to be right over the runway. I want to be above all the pattern and everything. So we're just going to angle off a little bit.
And we're going to go directly first to the left of the runway.
That's right. Well, we'll correct for the wind. If we go directly 90 degrees, it'll blow us off. So we'll angle into the wind a little bit. Then we're going to go out long enough that we figure there's nobody in the pattern out there, and then we'll lose that extra 500 feet and then make a turn back into the left downwind for runway 18. Okay. That's the plan. I'm not going to go the full 3 miles off because there's not going to be anybody out here over these hills.
And I don't see any other aircraft.
Nope, and you won't always. You can't count on that. It's one of those, it's nice if it shows you, but if not, you're on your own, you got to pay attention. Okay. All right, so there's our 2,400 foot level off. You got to get the throttle back in because I'm flying now. I'm not going to get a whole lot of throttle back in. There's no sense getting all the way up to the big speed again. There, you can follow along. See how we're right here, we're aiming at this, so that's that turn we're going to make. Now the green means you're still at 500 feet or above. This is where we'll do our descent. So we'll be at pattern altitude once we join that this 45 degree in.
But when we start coming over, yeah, 500 feet.
We're going to still have 500 feet above. That's why we're at 2400. We're not going to lose that altitude until we're above anything else that's going on underneath us. But we want to be that altitude. The reason you come in on that 45 is somebody that's already in downwind knows where to look for you. They're going to look for you at pattern altitude. So we don't want to do that descent there. One thing could happen, we could be descending on somebody that's already entering, which is unlikely, but possible. The other is we want to be right where they expect to see us. And that's going to be co-altitude at a 45 aimed at the middle of the runway. So we know there's a little bit of wind. I'm going to extend a little bit beyond the very end of the runway, which we're parallel to right now, or perpendicular to right now. And then I'll start that 90 degree turn, although I'm going to do a little bit less because I want to angle into that wind from the south. Bump, bump, bump.
Moving altitude.
Nag, nag, nag. Okay, so we're at 2600. I gained a couple hundred there on the lift over these hills. Wow, feel that?
Yeah.
Somebody's been up there with a snowmobile. Left some nice tracks. Looks like fun, except like bitter cold. Everything looks, well, the taxiways are plowed. The ramp looks a little slippery, but we'll only be taxiing on that. The runway itself looks fine. So we'll just be careful when we're on the ramp. There we go. So now we're crossing over. So we're right about here. I still want to go out a little bit. Anybody that was on a left downwind would now be at least 700 feet below us. More like 800. They should be at, what would you say, 1900 feet? Yeah, that's right.
1200 uniform, 7 miles north. Inbound, Vinton County, full stop landing.
Vinton County, okay. There's some traffic out there, 400 feet above us. 10 miles away, very hard to see if at all. Sometimes you can see a big jet. They're big enough that you can see them. All right, how far out are we? Still pretty, not enough. We'll go to just the beginning of these hills here.
So we're almost a mile out.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, it's going to measure to the center of the runway, which is kind of tricky.
Now.
So, yeah, ish. It's measuring to there, so you Pythagoras in a minute. So we'll go another mile. You can really kind of gauge it by just looks, too. I know where nobody's flying a downwind way out here. But
yeah, I'm looking out. I don't.
Your whole safe than sorry thing. And we want to leave enough to get through this turn. You know, we have to get all the way through this turn and still have some length to get on that 45. So we want to leave a little extra for that. So that farm out there with the silo is a good spot. Okay, make a gentle turn here. Oh, that looks perfect. Now we have to go up far enough that it's a 45 degree angle to get back in. So we don't want to turn mid-field, even though that's where we want to end up. We want to extend out here so that we have something like a 45 degree angle. I don't think anybody is sitting on a radar screen somewhere with a protractor measuring whether you get a true 45 degrees or not, but we'll do the best we can. So now we can descend now, because we're out here on this leg here where we can get down to pattern altitude, which is 1900 feet, I believe we said.
And so you're...
I'm taking the throttle back a little bit.
Taking the throttle back a little bit, yeah.
Moving altitude.
Leaving Las Vegas. I forget her name. There's a song. Leaving Las Vegas. She's a singer. It'll come to me later. All right, see it way, way out there. So we're the only ones out here. We're at 2,000. And that looks like about a 45 once I get through the turn. So let's do that. Show crow. Leaving Las Vegas. There's pattern altitude. Need a little more throttle because we don't want that descent anymore. We want to level here at the pattern altitude. I'll look at how well that's going to work out. Now this is, again, I can't point directly at the middle of the runway. Well, actually I can. There's going to be a little bit of left to right. So I'm going to point more kind of at the very end of the runway. And now this is when I want to tell people we're coming.
Portsmouth Traffic Experimental Suite for the Golf is on an extended 45-degree entry to the left downwind runway 18, Portsmouth.
That was wordy. Nah, you don't worry about any of that anymore. We know where it is. It's right out in front. See how it's we're kind of inching to the side, so there's still a little bit of wind from the left. It's not much, so I'm going to tighten up.
Okay, and we're coming down from that side.
We're coming
From the
right here.
Side. Yeah, we're here.
We're right here.
And we're going to go down.
It's going to look upside down to you now because we've turned around.
Yep, we're definitely coming.
Yep, and we're at pattern altitude. Now we want to be looking too. We're doing a pattern entry that we know where people are going to look for us. We know where to look for them also. So we're looking at crosswind, which is right out in front of us, or somebody coming already on a downwind. I'm not seeing anything, but they're damn hard to see. So it's really more of a theory than anything. All right, so here we are on our downwind. We're getting ready to enter the downwind.
Portsmouth Traffic, 4 Delta Golf is entering up until left downwind runway 18, Portsmouth.
All right, now I got to slow it down enough to put flaps down. You'll feel the nose dump down when I put these down. It's going to kind of boop. Yep, boop. There we go. And we can trim that if you put the trim right on takeoff setting. That's a real nice approach trim. Works out really, really well. All right. Now we just got to get out the base leg. We're beating the numbers. We're kind of far out. Kind of way out there downwind. That's the wind that's blowing us back out there. There we go.
Looks pretty clear.
Yep. Yeah, I think everything's fine. Still no other airplanes around. Let it start coming down soon.
Portsmouth Traffic, 4 Delta Golf, left base, runway 18, full stop, Portsmouth.
Ooh, that's pretty. All right, here comes the landing. Check on final, nobody coming in, okay. Wow, look at the snowbanks. We're gonna be in a little tunnel here. Canyon. See how high those are?
Yeah.
Good thing my wings aren't any wider than the runway.
We're landing on U2.
Yeah. Gotta put a U2 in here. Oh, it's not as high as it looked. That was an illusion. The shadows made them look really high. Uh-oh, a little bit slippery. Oh, Kyle's here.
From Florida?
No, Kyle's the one who lives in Jackson, whose hangar was snowed in. I told you the runway was plowed, but the hangar and such weren't?
Yes.
Well, they must have plowed it, because there he sits. It's an RV-12, just like mine. Ready to get, I think either those are his strobes or the one next to him. But feel it sliding? Yes. Not fun. I don't like it sliding. It's nice and slow. That's the other one that's getting ready to leave. Oh my. Lip sliding along. It won't turn. No brake. No brake there. Feel the brakes grab?
Yeah.
That's eerie. Where's a good parking spot? Oh, we're not turning again. Here we go. Well, that was interesting. Alright, now I need you to... Oh, I can do it. Well, actually, I'll... what's the time? 175.3.
Engine.